Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mike Matthew KE and this is my programming series. So today we're going to be looking at static methods and variables in programming. As usual, we'll be doing it with examples in C++ and Python, and I've put timestamps on the video below so that you can be able to skip to where you need to go. So what are static methods? Anything that is declared static is basically there's only one instance of such variable or a method. So for example, if we have a class and we have a static method, then there's only one instance of that method available throughout all the instances and in that class, right? So I'll just dive in right into code so that we can see that in example and so that it can make sense. So let's start off with C++. So in C++, I'm just going to create a class and I'll call it number. And then in this class, we'll create a private variable that we're going to have it as a float value, like so. And then from here, we are going to have our constructor, of course, which takes in a float value. Let me just call it num, and then we'll assign value the variable that we've passed in. So now, when we declare a static variable, so for example, let's say we are doing an add operation, right? So if we declare a static method, so we'll declare static, and then let's say it will be an add function. Sorry, you have to put the return type, so let's say it will return a number. So we expect this to take another number, number A and number B, and then we want it to evaluate the sum. So that will evaluate a dot val plus b dot val, right? And we'll create a new number from the result here, right? So remember, number expects a float, and then this is the number that will return. So of course you can do this stepwise, where we have float result, for example, equals that, and then now from there we create a number from the result. You can still go that way. Both are still applicable, okay? So it's just up to how you want to write your code. I'm just putting it this way so that we have a one line of code that does everything for us. So in this case as well, so here we have this static variable that we've called add, and that will take two numbers and then add them up. Now because it is a static variable, that means if I declare, for example, number x, and I assign it, let's say 4, and a number y, and I assign it, let's say 5 or 50, you know. So in this case, being that this is a static method right here, then we'll be able to do number, and then we'll use this two colons so that you're able to access that static variable, and then now we'll pass in our variables like so. Then of course this we are assigning to a new number, which we'll call result equals this, right? And then now we are able to print our result. Now in this case we don't have a way of printing the result directly, right? Because we have a private variable. So I'll just add another static function again, which does not return anything but prints our value, right? So it will print a number, let's say x, So what will come out is this x dot val, and then it's the end line, right? So that we can say number print result, right? So if I run this, we'll expect to see the result, which is 9, right? So the major difference between these two. So if I set up another method, another member method, let's say that adds. So I'll call this one sum this time, and it will take in another number, let's say b. So in this case, since we're calling it with this class, in this case it will be an instance method, right? It belongs to the class. So here we'll have sum. We'll just return a number where we have value plus b dot value, right? So this is a member variable, which means it has access to the val variable, right? And if we do this for sum result, we'll do it in such a way that we have x dot add y, and then it will give us the result. Then we can also print here. We can also print here the sum result, right? Sorry, this is supposed to be sum, not add, right? So you can see there's a difference between these two. So in this case, we are calling it number add. We are able to call a static method as part of the class, and also we can also put it this way. Let me call it add result. We can also have x dot add x y, right? And all this should result in the exact same thing, right? So you can see whenever we have a static method, we are able to call it as part of the class, and we're able to call it as part of an instance, right? And then the difference with a member variable is that you can only call it as part of the instance. You cannot, for example, do x, number sum, for example. So this cannot happen. You can already see our compiler, our IntelliSense is complaining that this is not possible. So that's where the difference between the static method and the normal methods within our function are, right? So if you run this, you'll see that the result is the same. Of course, we'll still have 9 from all the three. However, the difference here is this static method has only one implementation across the board. Whether you create 5 instances or whether you're referring to just the base class without an instance, we'll have this static method available for use, right? So now that's the difference between a static method and other methods. So this can be made a little bit easier by looking at static variables. So if we create a public variable here, let's call it static std string, and then call it type, and so we'll not assign a value here. So we've created a static std string type, and then before our main method we can also just the same way as we were able to access our static method, we do the same here, and we call it number, for example, right? Here we have to do a sort of declaration so that it works. So we'll have std string number type is equals to number, right? So expecting so I'll just remove all this. so that we test only the static variable. So we'll see here that if I print the value of number type, of course we're expecting in this case to get the value number printed. However, we can also test this a bit further. Alright, so this has to have 2 columns. So so you can test this a bit further by looking at since this is also a member variable, we expect that x will also have that value and y will also have that value. And this time we are accessing it using dot because we are accessing it from an instance of the number class. So if I run this, you will notice that we have all of them printing number. However, we had only assigned the value, the type, the value number here to the class variable and not the instance of the variable. We do not give a value to x.type, right? But it is still getting that value that you had assigned to it. So it means basically that a static variable is shared across all its instances. That's basically what a static variable is. It is shared across all instances and it does not belong to the instance, rather it belongs to the class. And of course, we'll have the same case for our methods here. They are static methods, that means they belong to the class, and there's only one implementation across all instances of that class, right? So let's try and see this in Python and see the comparison that we have. So in Python, we'll create another, a similar case to what we've done in C++. We have a class called number, and then it contains a float, a value that is a float, and then we'll have our static method. So how we declare a static method is this way: a static method that does the operation of adding. So we'll define add, and what this will do is it will take 2 numbers. So we'll have x as a number, and okay, in this case I'll just not define. So we'll have x and y, which we expect to be numbers, and then what we'll return is another number, which is x.val plus y.val, right? So rather than putting this here, we can put it in the constructor, right? So that we have self.val is equals to now the value that we pass here. So our num, which is a float, so we'll pass it here. So that way we are able to initialize our class using a float that will be given to the member variable val, right? Or rather the instance variable val. So in this case, we can create x, which is a number. I can call it number, let's say 4, for example, and then y, which is also a number, and call it number 5. Then from here we can do our addition. So we'll create another number, which will be the result is equals to so number.add x y. Sorry, we've come from the C++ implementation, so this is the way it's supposed to be written in Python. So you can see here, given this is a static method, we are able to access it directly from the class. We don't need to have the member variable, or rather the instance of the class being used in order to access this method called add. And that is what a static method does. It belongs to the class, and therefore it does not need an instance to be able to access. So if I run this, you can see that our result will be, oh, right, we have not printed the value. So you can print the value of res.val here. So you can see the result. So if I run this, run it again, so you can see the result here is 9, right? Exactly what you expect. Now, when it comes to, we can try and contrast this a bit with member variable. So let's say it takes in another number like so, and then we return our another number that is the sum of val and y.val. Sorry, this is supposed to be self, and it's returning self.val and y.val, right? This is basically a member method. It means we will only be able to access it with an instance of this class, and that is also why we are passing self as the first variable, right? You can see even in the static method, you do not need to pass self as the first variable. We only need to pass whatever variables or whatever parameters we need to perform whatever operations that we need. However, in this case, since it belongs to the class, since this sum will belong to the class, then we will be able to access it via the instance, which means we need to pass self, and we'll be able to access this self.val value right here. So if I do the comparison here, you can see the sum result, which is also a number, will be x.add y, for example. That's how you would use it. And of course, if we print the sum res, we expect that the value of sum res, we expect that we'll get this. Okay, we have an error here. Right, this is supposed to be sum, not add. So if I run this, you can see that we get the same values, 9 and 9. So the difference here is simply that this method right here belongs to the class and not the instance of the class, right? And that's why we are accessing it in the way that we are here. So when it comes to Python, we do not have static variables per se. What we do have is member variables. So the member variables, if I come up here, whenever we do a declaration, for example, let's say we've declared something called type, and this is a string, like so. This is a member variable. In contrast with this right here, whenever we have it within the init, this will be an instance variable, basically meaning it's belonging to an instance. While this right here is a member variable, meaning it's belonging to the class and not the instance, right? So that basically means we can be able to do something like this: number.type equals number, for example, right? And this will be shared across the entire class. Or even if I give this value right here rather than outside, we'll notice that all the variables will be able to have this value number, right? So if I allow me to delete this so that we can just check the value of number. So print number.type, and then we also have x.type and we have y.type. And if I run this, you'll see that we get a number for all of them, right? And even if I place it outside, if I place this declaration outside, for example, and I say number.type is equals to number, then we should be able to get the exact same result. What that means basically is that this variable type is shared across every instance of that class. It basically belongs to the class, which is kind of like what we have with the static methods here. The static methods belong to the class. So in Python, there's no explicit static variable. However, the member variables can be used as static variables, right? So I hope this has made sense to you. This is what static variables are and static methods are. In the case of Python, we've at least seen that for variables, you have member variables versus instance variables, and that's how basically the static variable and static method work, right? It's just a variable or a method that belongs to the class and not the instance of the class, right? So that's how the static variables and method work. I hope you've learned. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Give a thumbs up if you've liked what you've learned, and if you have questions, you can always hit me on the comments or find me on my email, info@mikematthewke.com. And I hope to see you next time. Cheers.